What's up, everybody? So this video has not been an easy process. Having some problems with my computer and also some, storage issues. This video was originally, intended to be a real-time painting instructional video. So it might be a little awkward, but I ended up having to speed up the footage and just kind of condense everything into a time-lapse video. And it's going to be a little bit long, but just make some coffee, make some tea, maybe work on your own art and just kind of listen to me talk for a little while. We're going to talk about art and obviously talk about this painting. I've featured the reference photo to the right on the screen just so you guys can kind of get a better idea of what we're trying to aim for. Just kind of starting with the loose, artistic, spontaneous process of just laying in the foundation. You might see my mouth moving throughout this footage or me, stepping back or showing something on my palette or something. Just try to ignore it. Like I said, the structure of the video might be a little awkward, but it shouldn't be too different from any other time-lapse video. So I basically have to commit myself to talking for the next 50 minutes. Hope you guys can stand my voice. We're just working with burnt umber here. Drawing a few construction lines to just get the overall process of the painting started. I really like this reference photo. It's just super cute, super, sensual, I guess you could say. And I really like the play of the dark tones of her hair on the lighter tones of her skin. I've got my Starbucks instant coffee here, so we're ready to go. If you guys hear me slurping, that's just me drinking coffee throughout this recording. I'm going to take a sip right now. But yeah, basically not getting too committed to detail, just working within, it's like that little cross shape and then just kind of building on that. So if you guys are struggling with portraits, start with like a cross shape and then kind of measure from there. We're just kind of getting in loosely the overall sketch of the face. Now, obviously most of this will probably change, but overall the structure is there. We just have to kind of lay paint on it. And this original video was intended to be I'm just going to scroll down here to make sure it is recording. It was intended to be like an, all-in-one go. Okay, looks like it is recording. An all-in-one go alla prima portrait type deal. Spontaneous and all that stuff. But it just, I wanted to make the painting even better. So we ended up going into, more than one session. And it ended up taking about 2 weeks to actually finish this painting, I think. Maybe not that long, but about a week and a half. But I'm super happy with the result. If you guys follow me on Instagram at Andrew Marlowe Artist, you can see the final product of this painting. I wasn't trying to be like a total, subservient to the reference photo. It's a lot more impressionistic. It's a little more, painterly than the reference photo. But this is a really good reference photo because it does have lights and darks, and it's got, just beautiful lighting, and it's just a great photo. If anybody's interested in the Instagrammer that this is, I can try to send you all a link. And hopefully she won't mind me painting her in my YouTube video. I don't usually tag Instagrammers on Instagram, unless it like looks exactly like them. But likeness, that's a hard thing. I would like to say like my likenesses are probably 50% there. This must have been before I got a haircut because my hair was looking gnarly. It looks like I got some kind of weird extra beard growing there on the back of my neck. But anyway, yeah, just kind of working with the upwards motion of the hair. But anyway, yeah, as far getting back to what I was saying before with likenesses, likenesses are always tricky. I like to say that my paintings usually look at least halfway like the people that I'm trying to convey. But it's not all about the likeness. I mean, just because you can get a really good likeness, that doesn't mean you're a great artist. That just means that you can copy well. So if you guys are working on portraits or whatever it is you're doing artistically, try to go beyond the reference photo, try to go beyond the model. But, at the same time, strive to make it look like what you're trying to create. But at the same time, don't get too upset or depressed if you don't quite hit the mark. Because as you'll see in this video, it's all about the process. And I love when the body starts connecting with the head and the lines really start to take shape. I'm just kind of, sketching in the roundness of her chest. And then, After the drawing is kind of solidified, then we start just laying in some paint. We're not using any mediums for this. The only medium we are using is odorless mineral spirits. And we're just kind of being sparing with it, but using enough to get the paint flowing. I see a lot of artists using mineral spirits, but they're just not using enough, and the paint is just kind of like scratching, and they're trying to like do this super dry drawing just with like paint or with just so don't be afraid to use mineral spirits. It's not going to kill you. Don't overdo it. But I've actually found this really amazing brush cleaner that I'll tell you guys about in the next video. But it's called Bristle Magic Paintbrush Oil and Acrylic Cleaner, and you can clean your brushes with it. I don't recommend painting with it. But yeah, you just clean and condition your brushes with it, and it works amazing. It's also non-toxic for those of you who are worried about toxins. There's plenty of ways to paint with oils that do not involve toxins whatsoever. So don't let people kind of make you feel afraid of that. There's my giant face saying something to the camera. So this looks like this footage was sped up a lot more for some reason. But we're just kind of working on the hair here, just really solidifying the hair. And I like time-lapse videos, but to me, if they don't have any narration, there's really no point in me watching them. I mean, I might kind of skim through them, but if you can put the effort in to put a narration in there, it just makes it, I'll listen to the whole thing as long as somebody's talking. But yeah, if it's just a time-lapse video but doesn't have any audio, it's just kind of like, it just kind of comes across like the person's showing off or something, because they're not really sharing anything about their art or their process. But so this is after the first day here actually, and we're just kind of fixing some things up. You guys can really see that the painting is probably about maybe 40% the way there, maybe not even. But I just really love like looking at these videos and sort of documenting the painting process. It's just super cool to kind of see all the effort that you put in, and how it starts with just one little line for the nose or one little line for the mouth and just turns into this beautiful painting. And hopefully you guys are staying away from all the negativity lately. Being engaged, but staying, just make sure you guys keep your mental health. I kind of got lost in all the current events and the negativity, and it was distracting. I was arguing with people on Facebook trying to express my opinion, and then before you know it, the whole world's against you. And so it's better just to kind of mind your own business, I think. Take a stand somewhere, but make a change in your, actual daily life. You don't have to be like a giant social justice warrior on the internet to make a change. But I really like the textures of the hair and the textures of the paint on the face and also the background. Like I said, this painting was initially intended to be just kind of like a 1 or 2 hour session. But you'll find that it's very difficult to just create a good painting in 1 or 2 hours. It can be done, but there's always going to be something that you could go back and fix. Unless that's just like really your style, like Bob Ross or somebody, or some of the impressionistic painters, and you really have to know what you're doing with tone. You really have to know what you're doing with paint and texture. But as you guys can see, it doesn't take much to just get a portrait started, and just how good you want it to look, or how finished or how realistic, is all in how much time you want to put into it. But there's two different types of oil painting. There's alla prima, all in one go, wet on wet, like we're doing now, and then there's like really finished, layered style oil painting that can take weeks and months and even years or decades. Look at somebody like Leonardo da Vinci or Jan van Eyck. I mean, back in the Renaissance and the medieval times, and even the neoclassical painters, they would spend years on paintings, a year or two, sometimes more, depending on the size of the commission. That brings me to another point. Is this video was filmed about 2 weeks ago, probably about a week after I got a new commission, and I hadn't started the commission yet. And I've actually started the commission now, and I'm enjoying it. But I've found that I don't really like doing commissions because there's some kind of like pressure involved with it, especially if it's I mean, I like doing commissions because it helps your skills and it helps you work on the business side of things. But there's like this sort of unspoken pressure to get it done by a certain time. The person paid you. They expect the portrait to look like them or their family member or their pet. And it's just the enjoyment just kind of gets sucked out of it. So I would like to eventually get to the point in my artistic career where I can just have so many paintings, so many professional paintings that people want to buy or that they can relate to, or something in my art that speaks enough to people where they will buy my artistic catalog without. But I'm not going to close myself off to commissions by any means, because that would be foolish. But I think I need to be a little more selective. For me, I like painting women, portraits of women, and that's pretty much all I really have any interest in painting. I mean, I do like painting pets occasionally, the odd male portrait every once in a blue moon. And I think, my opinion or my passion might change as time goes on. I really do like landscapes, but I'm just not good at them. So I don't really want to, waste a lot of my time in landscapes. I'll probably do it on the side a little bit. But I don't want to, I'm very, very like invested in my artistic goals to paint, women, so that's pretty much what it is that I enjoy doing. That's what speaks to me. That's just what gets me in the studio. It gets that pencil in my hand. And now that we're talking about being in the studio, let's jump to another topic, which is drawing. I was able to sort of slap this portrait together relatively quickly because I've been drawing the last 5 or 6 years. I have not put enough effort into drawing, during certain times as I should, so you should always be focusing on your drawing if you're painting. Don't ever neglect your drawing. You need to be drawing more than you're painting, to be honest with you, because painting is more about layering and more about shading, and which is related to drawing, but the real essence of your skills is going to be, the pencil on the paper or the pen or the charcoal. So this is starting to look really cool. The eyes are starting to come in. And as you can see, I didn't start with hardly any detail, just a few shapes, just a few lines to get things going. And the more loose you can start, the less detailed you can start, the better off you're going to be throughout the artistic process. I mean, you have different methods of painting. Some people, I've seen a lot of artists, that sort of have that like printer method where they like work on one section at a time, and everything is kind of like goes from one side of the portrait to the next. But I prefer to work kind of in zones, more like Andrew Tischler or Cesar Santos, or like sort of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some artists, but there's so many artists I can't really even think of them. But somebody like John Singer Sargent, just kind of working in zones, building up the tones, and not necessarily starting with a lot of detail. I still start with too much detail sometimes, but I think the last year or so I've gotten better at just holding back. And we're probably like 2 days into this painting now, and I'm just now starting with the eyes. And the eyes are a little bit too bright, the white part of the eye. But you can see how there's always the struggle to depict anatomy and facial structures and skin tones and lighting and just all this complicated stuff. But if you kind of if you break it down into colors that make sense, look at the reference photo, really look at it. What do you see? What's the dominant color? What other colors do you see? How can you blend them together to form the portrait? And I really like the way this portrait came out. Am I going to say it's the best portrait in the world? No. Is it the best painting I've ever painted in the world? No. But I learned a lot from it, and I worked with some different skin tones and stuff. And that's really what it's all about. You're not, you should never be debilitated by, striving for artistic perfection. I mean, I'm probably going to contradict myself, but you should always strive for artistic perfection, but don't just like be a slave to it. Try to just focus on the craft, enjoy the craft. I could have put in much more details in this painting, like that beautiful vein going through her chest, or like, the different strands of hair, or the different, blemishes on her face or something. But for this, it was more of just a spontaneous color study, with a semi-realistic, approach, I guess you could say. And like I said, my mouth was moving, and the video was super cool, but it was like 2.5 hours long. It just would not export, it would not upload. So I think for now I'm gonna have to stick with the time lapse videos, unless I can just shorten the video into like portrait painting part one or something. But to paint a really detailed portrait like this, I would probably have like 50 videos or something in real time, and I think that would be too spammy. So until I get like an external hard drive or something, I think we're just gonna kind of have to settle for what we got. I'm just gonna raise this microphone a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't interfere with anything that we've recorded so far. I'm just constantly making sure that it's recording, and who knows? I hope my computer's not gonna crash in the middle of this. But yeah, it's complicated, guys, when you're making art videos that are going on for like, hours and hours, and you got all this footage, and you got to film stuff and then stop the camera so your camera doesn't die, and then charge the camera and then import from the camera, and then it's tough. I need to get a more advanced camera and a more advanced recording system. But for now, this is pretty good. This is what we got to work with. So, another thing I wanted to mention was just, I was talking about what drives me to create art, and obviously it's portraits of women, or nude figure studies of women or people that I'm involved with. I do a lot of portraits of Noelle and stuff. So try to find something that inspires you, somebody that you know, or just something that you can connect with, and you could basically, sort of perhaps boil all my artistic, endeavors down to the fact that I'm a heterosexual male, but I think there's more to it. I just the beauty and the diverse beauty and different types of women, different skin tones, different body types. Just trying to depict, women's emotions and all this stuff. It's challenging to do, but that's kind of what drives me. Apart from the fact that women are just beautiful, obviously, but how does it speak to me? Like when I was growing up, when I was a young kid, I had some gender dysmorphia issues and all that stuff. So maybe that kind of like drives a little bit of my artistic process and stuff. But, a lot of it is sensually based perhaps, and just, attraction issue, not issues, but just, I'm attracted to beautiful women. So I guess that kind of just, speaks itself through my art. And, so try to like sort of analyze and rationalize why you're painting what you're painting. I'm 100% certain, and confident, and I realize why I paint women. It's because I like women. It's pretty simple. It's like 5 + 5. I feel like a lot of artists, they're too focused on too many different things. Try to focus on one thing that really gets you going. Do you want to spend time painting something that you're only 50 or 75% interested in, or do you want to spend your time painting something that you're 110% interested in? That's kind of how I look at it. So I really like this stage of the portrait, but nothing is very well blended yet. We have to really blend everything. We're just kind of working from one zone to the next. And I mentioned in this video that a lot of things with oil painting is sort of left to chance unless you're like an oil painting expert. But if you're self-taught like me, you're still kind of finding your way through. You're still sort of adjusting things, and you don't know exactly how things are going to look until you just splash the bits down, as Francis Bacon would say. That's one of my favorite quotes. He said you're kind of, you're just sort of, you have to rely on what's going to happen, or you just have to kind of experiment and just see what happens when you splash the bits down. He was British, so he probably would have, said it more like, oil painting is just the way that whatever happens when you splash the bits down. I don't know. That probably was a terrible English accent, but anyway, you guys get my idea. You guys should watch the David Sylvester interviews with Francis Bacon. And now that we're talking about art history and Francis Bacon, that leads me to another point, is art history. Art history is very important. It's a little more like nerdy than actually creating art, but it's important. I'm reading a book about Fra Angelico. He was a early Renaissance fresco religious painter. Super awesome, interesting book. Um, and also, I'm reading a book about Lucian Freud. I just finished a little mini biography of Francis Bacon, and just also I'm at the local university studying art history, so I want to get like that art history bachelor's under my belt and just kind of see what I can do with it, see what kind of jobs I can get, and then I should definitely go back for my master's also. But I'm also focused on my artistic endeavors and my artistic career, so that's one thing that does gives me a lot of anxiety is that there's a lot of time consuming things in my life. And eventually I'm probably going to have to, just really pick one and just really work on it. But for now, I just kind of have to be a multitasker because I can't make a living from art just yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough yet. I think I'm heading in that direction, but it could take another, 20 years. Who knows? I don't think it'll take that long, but I need to get a couple more years under my belt and just really focus on drawing and getting better at portraits. And I'm like anybody else too. I still have to work a job and stuff. I have to pay my car payment. I got to pay rent. Got to pay for food and all this stuff. So when you're working full time or even part time and you're going to school, and also to add to that, you're trying to be an artist like me, and then on top of that, you're trying to be a YouTuber. So that's like four things. I'm being pulled in so many different directions. And to be honest, it is really stressful sometimes. But right now, we're blending the forehead, and it's just looking super cool. Just looking at this footage, I'm like really proud of myself. Sometimes you don't notice, what you're accomplishing until you're actually working on it, or you actually view it from a distance, and you can see how everything is just slowly coming together. And that's why it's hard to create paintings just like in one day. It really cannot be done. I mean, it can be done. I encourage people to do quick oil painting studies and color studies, but you should also be working on longer artistic endeavors. And this painting is called Valentine's Day. If anybody likes it, it is for sale. But anyway, the reason I called it Valentine's Day was because all of these colors just really remind me of Valentine's Day. The pinks and the reds and the orange. It just reminds me of like Valentine's Day candy. And sort of also the mood of the reference photo. She's like trying to seduce somebody or something. So that's also kind of related to Valentine's Day. The Starbucks instant coffee is super good, a little bit of creamer. And yeah, so yeah, I just really love this channel, guys. The views have been, growing a lot on this channel. A lot of people are finding this channel from the how to clean your oil paint palette video. And I hope you guys are enjoying that video. It's got like, you know, over 1,000 views now, which is really cool. Make sure you guys go back and study the catalog of some of the other videos. I'm sure you will enjoy them. And yeah, this portrait is, definitely coming along. The nose is starting to really come together. Um, yeah, I mean, just look at it. It's looking really cool. The forehead is not finished yet. So this was like a really good lesson on just documenting the process. And I kind of like this. It's a little better. I think it's a little more efficient to just kind of speed up the footage and talk over it than trying to expect people to sit through like a 2 hour video. But even this is a stretch. This is like 48 minutes long. But at least, that's good enough for somebody to sit down and listen to it while they're eating breakfast or before they go to bed. I come to YouTube to listen to things. I'm really happy with the way I did the nose. It looks really cool, really three-dimensional. And I'm really trying to break out of relying on lines. Um, the nose is still a little bit too liney, but we're gonna even make it. It's all about the contours and the colors, and it takes a while to kind of realize that it's super important, because when you first start drawing or painting, all you really have to rely on is lines. And lines are great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with line drawing or starting a painting with lines. I mean, everything kind of starts with some form of a line. But you have to sort of learn to branch out of that and get more into the shading aspect and the contours and lights and darks and values. And when you first start drawing and painting, you don't really want to hear all that stuff. Like I hated when people would talk about, oh, you got to focus on your values, because I didn't want to hear it because I didn't really know how important it was. And I just wanted to focus on doing beautiful paintings. But you really need to just go back to the basics. And I don't mean just sit there and draw an apple or something boring like that, although that would probably be good for you. But just go back to the basics, just try to study light and dark, try to study values, study gesture drawing, you know, just try to really think about what it is you're doing and how it can improve what your overall goal is. If you're kind of like, it's like a train, because I don't know if you guys can hear the train out the window. But anyway, it kind of put a thought into my head. It's like a train trying to speed full speed without warming up the engines, or without, getting the coals kind of fired up. So that if you look at it with an artistic process with art, you're just trying to run a marathon, but you're not. If you just skip all the basics, if you skip drawing, if you skip, anatomy and all this stuff, you're going to run out of steam eventually, and your art is going to suffer. So, that doesn't mean you have to like go to art school for 20 years, or, you don't have to do gesture drawing. You don't have to do anatomy. You don't have to do anything really, but you have to realize that if you're painting portraits or you're painting people's bodies, yes, you kind of do have to do gestures, and yes, you do have to kind of do anatomy. But you can study gesture for a couple weeks or a month till you kind of think you get the hang of it, and then you can take a break, move on to anatomy, and then go back to gesture, and then start working on your shading. But you have to like constantly be practicing things in a foundational manner. You can't just forget about all that. And that's something I've been horribly guilty of. Is I'm just now, after 6 years of being an artist, I'm just now realizing the importance of gesture drawing. I'm just now realizing the importance of drawing, and I did all of that. Like I did all the drawing and stuff. I've been drawing probably about just as much as I have painting, but I was only drawing one thing. I was drawing at the kitchen table, with my just drawing portraits, or figure drawings on the kitchen table, at a flat on the table. I wasn't really drawing at the easel like you're supposed to. I wasn't really studying the human form. I wasn't really studying gesture. I mean, I was drawing women and stuff, nude figure drawings and paintings, but I wasn't really studying. I wasn't, practicing deliberate practice. And that leads me to my other thought, which is what this whole topic is really all about, is you need to get serious about deliberate practice if you're ever going to become a good artist. And that's just so important. You don't want to just be dabbling in different things. One day you're painting, the next day you're drawing. I mean, that's good. Like I said before, you need to balance those two, but you need to have a structure. What is it that you're drawing every day? Focus on gesture for like a half an hour every day. Then, work on just doing like a half an hour figure drawing. Practice hands one day, practice feet the next day, practice, mouths or noses, or just take a look at some bones, take a look at some, just really try to immerse yourself in the human figure. Just you have to just constantly go back to the basics, whatever the basics mean to you. And when I say the basics, I don't mean like, drawing 101 necessarily for babies, but just try to go back to, I mean, all the masters are always constantly going back to the basics. They're always practicing. And that's why they stay masters, is because they don't forget where they came from. You know what I mean? It's like when you grow up out of a small town or something, you don't just forget that you live there. Yes, you're glad to be out of there. You're glad to have more opportunities. But sometimes you have to go back and just remember where you came from. And that's the same thing with art. So that's super important. That'll really help you. And in the process, you'll develop your own style, but you don't want to have a style that lacks all this technique, because it's not really a style. It's just an illegitimate style, And there's a lot of, you could say, quote unquote, say naive art that doesn't have a lot of technique. Yes, it's good, but it could be even better if they had some technique behind it. And that brings me to another thought, which is Pablo Picasso, very, very controversial artist. A lot of people, we have that famous quote from Pablo Picasso that says, learn the rules like a master or something, so that you can break them like an artist. And that kind of makes sense. But if you actually go back and look at some of Picasso's quote unquote early stuff that was kind of like a master or really skilled, I've really yet to see anything from Pablo Picasso, even before he went super abstract, that was actually really that advanced. I mean, like, his blue period was really good. A lot of his drawings are really, really good. He did draw pretty realistically and paint realistically, but he was never like, somebody like, I don't know, he wasn't like really like a living figure master in my opinion, and maybe I should just do more research on him or something. But that quote, I think he, even Pablo Picasso himself, probably neglected some of the basics. Probably could have still been, a student, throughout his life. And you have to have a student mindset. You don't ever want to just get so egotistical that that you think that, you're too good to ever be a student. You're always going to be a student. And especially you add 10 times the amount of complex issues when you become self-taught, whatever that means. But you're not really self-taught because you're getting knowledge from YouTube, you're getting knowledge from books, you're copying other artists, you're copying reference photos. So self-taught, the only real definition of self-taught is sort of, maybe that, to me that means, I'm not in a art school. To me that means I don't have a mentor. To me that means I've never really taken a lot of drawing classes. To me that means, so that's kind of where self-taught comes in. But you'll find out pretty soon, after you claim to be self-taught, that you can't really rely on being self-taught. You really have to. And now that we have the internet, you can be self-taught. There's no better time to be a self-taught artist than now, and you can learn and get better and grow on your own time. And you don't have to sit, in an atelier if you don't want to. You don't have to pay expensive money for classes. So this is, I believe, maybe the third or fourth session. I don't think this is the last session. This might actually be the last painting session. Yeah, this is probably like the last 15 minutes of the video. So this is kind of where we're at. There's a little bit of glare, but you can definitely see that, we've reconstructed this reference photo, but we haven't. She sort of has taken on her own identity, and we're gonna finish up a couple things, but we're basically working on the body. This the lower chest, the neck, shoulder, and the chest. Working with a fairly limited palette. Got some browns and different umbers and stuff. I don't have time to name them all off right now. But yeah, try to that's another important topic that we should get into, is when you're painting something, try to stick with similar colors. Try to build up the color layers with all the same colors, or at least, you can slowly incorporate more colors into it. But don't just, you don't want like a rainbow going on. That's something that I've sort of learned with painting, is that you really have to, kind of stick to a color range. Otherwise, your painting is just going to be all out of whack. But at least if you stick within the same color value, it'll still be colorful, but it'll sort of have a cohesiveness to it, which is super important. So, and another important aspect is just, having a clean studio. We just made a video about that. It doesn't have to be super clean, but it has to be, you have to be able to function, and everything has to have a purpose. So now we're just adding some light underneath the chin there. And we're going to slowly start just working in the different contours and stuff. And this was, some of these painting videos that you guys see, they're made specifically for YouTube, for me to paint them on camera. So sometimes I won't, take them to a finish as best to my ability, because I'm just trying to get a couple points across, or I'm trying to talk about painting or something. I'm just trying to demonstrate something. I'm not necessarily, trying to create a masterpiece. So, but yeah, you can see the contour of the chest, the roundness of it. I really enjoy that. But all these colors are just too dark, so that's why we're lightening everything. And I'm not being too, strict with the colors. I'm not being very strict with the brush strokes. I'm leaving everything, as you can see, in the hair. Now, the hair definitely fell short a little bit. I think we might go back and do a little bit more work on it throughout this video. I can't remember. But the hair just didn't quite have the volume. It just looks a little too flat and stuff, and some of the contours are just all in the wrong spots. But for the most part, it looks like hair falling that has some weight to it. And hair is really tricky because it's like certain parts of it catch the light really strongly, and then other parts of it just, it goes from, from light to dark like immediately and stuff. So it's tricky. But this next section of the video, like I said, is just going to be sort of the bottom part, the neck and the shoulders and all that stuff, and the chest. And sort of just working one color range into the next, working with different brushes, And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed painting this. I'm super happy that the video is hopefully going to be up today. Might do a premiere or something. But yeah, anyway, like, yeah, I've just really, really been practicing, working in on the drawings in my studio, working on the gesture drawings, working on the figure studies, practicing holding my pencil like the traditional way and not the tripod grip that you usually, we're very tempted because that's how they taught us in school to hold the pencil like everybody, like you're going to write something. But that's more for writing or for fine details. But if you really want to loosen up, you need to hold it more like an ape, so to speak. Just like kind of clutch it, hold the pencil, and that way. I'm gonna make a video demonstrating what I'm talking about. But and with painting, it's a little bit different. You kind of have to. You can't necessarily use that traditional drawing grip, but you can a little bit. I like to think of it like as the traditional, like when I was a drummer, they have match grip, which is like how most drummers drum, but then they have the old jazz technique where you like hold it resting on your hand kind of between your thumb. Like I'll have to make a video. You guys probably have no idea what I'm talking about unless you're like a musician or something. But anyway, there was two different grips for the drumstick, and that's kind of how I like to view it with art too. There's the traditional sort of grip that you grip a pencil with, and that they teach you in art school or something, and then there's the more like maybe sort of Daryl Tank photorealism type technique, which is more like writing. But I've actually, speaking of Daryl Tank, I don't want to say anything bad about Daryl Tank because he's very talented. He's a great artist. But I do think that style of drawing, that really photorealistic printer style of drawing, that's more like rendering, I guess you could say. And it's still drawing, but it's more like just copying and getting something as smooth and as realistic as you can, which is cool. That's probably what most people think of when they start drawing, but you really want to go back to the old school, more like atelier classical art technique where you're standing up at an easel, you're just sketching, you're just, everything's not going to look all pretty. And because it's almost like a lot of the photorealism style drawing, the five pencil method by Daryl Tank, it's cool. I'm not saying that those people aren't good, but it's sort of like the Bob Ross method. It's like one guy teaches you how to do everything his way, but you're not really learning about anatomy per se. You're not really learning about shading. You're not really learning about, really how to, because I feel like people mistake that. They think that drawing is more like a physical thing. The actual drawing, really moving your shoulder or really, standing up at the easel versus just sitting down on the kitchen table, drawing a celebrity in this photorealistic style. That's not really drawing to me anymore, although it used to be. Drawing is more like the studio atelier type drawing. And for the people that are not artists, you probably won't really know what I'm talking about. But it's kind of like how everybody is taught to draw. You hold the pencil like you're going to write something, but that's not really the way you should be drawing. You really should be, starting with basic shapes, starting with basic lines before detail even crosses your mind. And yes, once you get into the more detailed spectrum of the portrait or whatever it is, you can start using that tripod grip as they call it, the writing grip. But yeah, I think we almost have, yeah, we actually got about another 12 minutes of this video left. Kind of starting to run out of things to talk about, even though you can never run out of things to talk about with art. But do you guys see the Valentine's Day vibe? It just reminds me of Valentine's Day candy for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, I like this painting a lot, and I'm actually working on one of the best paintings I think I've done so far, and I can't wait to show you guys that. I didn't document any of it in a video or anything, just because it's just so detailed and stuff. But it's really, being an artist is really about the long haul. It's really about, unless you have a teacher or a mentor, you're in an art school. If you're a self-taught artist, you have to commit yourself to a lot of failure. A lot of people just don't, have. I wake up some days and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be an artist. but you just got to keep pushing on and pushing on. As long as you got that passion, the art is going to get better. It has to, you know what I mean? But it's really all about the time in the studio and the experimentation. You have to unlearn bad habits, all the time. You have to learn how to mix colors more properly. You have to learn how to desaturate. You have to learn how to, just tone your colors down, because, you want to have more muted colors, because a bunch of muted colors looks way more colorful than a bunch of, oversaturated, colorful colors, I guess you could say. But yeah, we're just kind of finishing creating a little shadow on the shoulder there. I got about 8 minutes left here. Let's see if I can ramble for another 8 minutes. Hopefully my computer will last. I probably will not do another, video this long again for a while, unless it's just like, because this there's a lot of footage. There's a lot of like RAM that this is taking up on my computer between the audio and the reference photo being in here and all the different video clips and stuff. But anyway, I'm super happy. I'm super happy that you guys are joining me for this video. Make sure you guys leave your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully you guys can tell me what you think of the painting or give me some advice. Yeah, and I've just really been studying people like Steve Houston and Stan Prokopenko and just all these guys. I'm not necessarily like a slave to what they say or anything, but I just try to, try to take for what they say and develop, I've learned a lot from Stan Prokopenko with the gesture drawings and the bean. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the robo bean that he talks about, but you guys should definitely check out Stan Prokopenko and Andrew Tischler and Cesar Santos and, even more abstract types like Slew. He's got a lot of really cool stuff, and I like how he's not really a slave to, traditional art, so to speak. But you got these really cool guys like, Daniel Musgraves Evans does these really cool landscapes with a palette knife, and then you've got people like, there's just so many amazing artistic creators. Such a great time to be an art YouTuber too. But yeah, this is just kind of my little artistic corner of YouTube. I'm not telling people what to do or necessarily how to do it. I'm just encouraging people to actively practice the artistic craft. And it's kind of like Slew says, like we're all practitioners. We're not. You don't necessarily have to be a master. You just have to recognize that you're an artistic practitioner. And you might not ever want to be a master, because when you're a master, everybody comes to you for information and you kind of get this ego and you start maybe neglecting your skills. But if you look at most of the masters, whether or not they have egos is kind of beside the point, but they always are practicing. They don't ever forget where they came from. So that's pretty much where we're at in this video. I don't really have much else to say. I might just add a little bit of music to kind of close out this video. And yeah, this is pretty much the last part of the painting process. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one.